Hey, welcome to Business Influencers. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Hope everyone is having a great week. And if you are new to Business Influencers in the TALRadio Touch of Life Foundation platform, welcome. Again, you can watch any of the great hosts here at the TALRadio platform across the content areas that will address everything in business, personal life, things that are going on in the world. You name it, you can find it here at the TALRadio platform. And we are very, very privileged to be part of this platform since its inception back almost 4 years ago. It's hard to believe we've been around for 4 years. But again, we want to thank you, the loyal listeners that have been with us now since that time. And we are committed each and every week in bringing you subject matter experts and their contextual content to help raise you and your business's level of influence to the next level. As we always say here, that without influence, we can't get buy-in. And without buy-in, we can't convert and close more business. And that is due to the influence factor. And influence is always better for a more sustainable way to build better relationships that foster more growth with both sides rather than trying to persuade and convince. So we're going to be sharing a lot of insights here today. Our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. So if you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. We are going to be talking about all in. Yes, you got to be all in. And this is for you leaders, a formula for burnout-free success. So today's title is All In, Leaders Formula for Burnout-Free Success. Who would not want to have the formula where we can learn to offset burnout? Because burnout is real and it is contagious and it causes a lot of downturn in the KPIs and OKRs in any type of business, even nonprofits as well. And we are fortunate to be here with Ali Glaser. Ali is someone I personally know, and I'm so excited for her to be sharing her philosophies here on the framework for preventing burnout and unlocking sustainable success. And with her decades of leadership experience, she's going to share lots of insight. So a little background about her before we introduce her. She's a certified executive coach, dynamic speaker, master facilitator, and author of All In, the 28-Day Reset, a daily commitment to being at your best. She is the founder of the Ali Glaser Executive Performance, a firm dedicated to executive coaching, leadership training, inspiring keynotes. She also is the creator of the All In Masterclass, grounded in her All In philosophy, which helps leaders and teams prevent burnout, build confidence, and develop daily practices to feel energized, engaged, and at their best. Now, she's been a lifelong educator, and she spent a decade on the faculty of the Rutgers University teaching courses on human behavior, diversity and organizational development, and social policy. Now, I could keep going on and on and on about her academic and her work experience in organizational leadership. But meanwhile, when she's not helping leaders, she's an exercise enthusiast, an avid reader of psychological thrillers, and she lives in central New Jersey with her husband, Brian, and their son, Zachary. And without further ado, we welcome Ali Glaser to the show. Ali, how you doing today?
Hi, Chris. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
So great to have you here. So Ali, we always like to start, with the show when we talk about what you're going to be sharing with our audience today. Your backstory when it comes to this all in, like what got you to be all in as a leader, maybe recognizing maybe your own burnout at some point, and what was going on and what you did and what you do today, helping other leaders to do the same.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a quick story to start. If you don't mind, I'll tell you about two different drives that I had. Drive as in drive car, right? So for those of you who are on audio only, I'm got my hands on the steering wheel right now in front of me. And the first one was when I was 17 years old and I got my driver's license. And I drove my dad back home after getting my license at the DMV and kicked him out of the car as quickly as I could so I could take my first drive to high school by myself. And I remember that feeling as though it was like yesterday. And I remember exactly where I was driving, on what road. Even the song that was on the radio was Prince's Little Red Corvette. Now, I wasn't in a little red
Remember
Corvette.
that?
I was in a little black used Mitsubishi, but it was good enough for me. And I felt this feeling of just possibility, freedom, excitement. Just, I felt like I was at my best at that stage of my life. And obviously we evolve and what our best feel like when we're 17 versus, in our 40s and 50s.
We only know what we know at that point.
But for that moment, I was at my best. And I still think about what that felt like, and I could still feel those feelings. Then I remember a drive that I took about 10 or so years after that. And I was driving to a speaking engagement. And this was just before, we had the opportunity to get real traffic updates with GPS and flip a text to someone that just says, hey, listen, there's so much traffic. I didn't leave enough time. I'm so sorry. I'm going to be a few minutes late. I didn't have that opportunity. So instead, I did what we all do when we're stuck in traffic on our way to a speaking engagement, is we freak out. And I lost it. I was in my car. I was banging my steering wheel. I'm yelling at myself. It was like my inner critic, my guilt, oh my God, I'm such a better planner. How did I find myself in this situation? And that was about the opposite of how I felt the day I got my driver's license. And so that moment, the latter story that I just told, those feelings I had, and by the way, when I got to the speaking engagement, everyone else was late too. So it hadn't even begun. It was fine. It all worked out as things always do. But in the moment, what I realized was, I never want to feel that way again. I don't want to feel like I have to react to things that I can't control, like traffic. I can instead change my mindset, change my planning, change how I do things in order to show up at my best. And so that's the beginning of that. Now, that was a long time ago. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago when I started thinking about my new business, becoming an executive coach. I was very into the intersection of leadership development, and self-care. And so that's really where the all-in philosophy became a thing.
I love the fact that you share a story from even an early age, and I look back at a lot of the things, how I evolved through those experiences that oftentimes we take for granted. So when you talk about all in, this formula, obviously, it's not I'm not sure what the formula is, but when you explain, where does that first part of the formula, where does it start?
So I'll tell you and I'm not, math is, I am a lot of things, not good in math is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
So the formula is fairly simple. It is, and I'll tell you what's after to the right of the equal sign first. Okay. So equals all in, and what all in really is about is being engaged, energized, and confident. So how I show up all in is going to be different from how you might, but for me, it is being at my best, which for me is generally how I like to show up. So on my best days, I am, generally speaking, engaged in whatever I'm doing, whether that's at work or at home with my son. I am energized because I've got daily practices that help me to refuel as needed. And I've got confidence because I'm showing up in a way that I know is my best self, right? I'm not reacting to the traffic on the road and all of the things. Not that those things don't happen, but I equip myself with the tools to be able to respond and not just react.
Well, I love what you said, responding versus reacting, because we think about it, most people in the world, even you see it on the news all the time. I mean, it's just a bunch of people reacting to other people in situations that are beyond our control to begin with.
Right. That's right. So the equation, so that's the end of the equation, is being all in, engaged, energized, and confident, or at your best, however you define it. The equation is actually 3 parts, and they're just all kind of added together. So it's self-awareness plus intentionality plus self-care. Self-awareness plus intentionality plus self-care. So self-awareness is the obviously knowing what it is that fuels you, what it is that sets you off, right? Like, so what, on the one hand, when you're at your best, what have you done that day? Or what did you do that week? We're all typically at our best when we're on vacation, right? Because we're relaxed and we're taking time to read or to work out or to do the things that make us feel good, being with people that we care about. So knowing what our individual selves need in order to be able to show up the way that we wish to show up in the world for the people around us at work and at home. And you have intentionality. So now we know these things about ourselves. I know I'm better with a workout in the morning. I know that I'm better when I've connected with someone I care about, even if it's just a friendly text to kind of say like, have a great Monday, have a great start to the week. So if I don't so I'll say it on the positive is, so then we need to infuse those things into our daily life. That's being intentional about our self-awareness, about what we know about ourselves. And that's where I could talk more in a bit about how we can infuse those things into our daily life. And then the third thing is self-care, which is how are we managing our energy? So when I talk about self-care, that means different things to different people. I'm not talking about spa days and bubble baths, although those are nice and they might be a part of that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about managing our energy. And so we talk a lot about time management. And what I would say to leaders is, let's not worry about time management. We all have the same amount of hours in a day. Let's focus on our energy management, because that is restorable, it's renewable, it's infinite. It's just a matter of how we manage it.
Yeah, wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope listeners, again, that information, will make sure that it will be in the show notes as well, but valuable information. And we hope that you listen to this show again in its entirety and go ahead and share this with a colleague or peer. So Ali, with that being said, what you shared there, you probably talked to a wide variety of different leaders, leaders running for-profit businesses, nonprofits, yeah. They could be CEOs or C-suite or senior management. But nonetheless, burnout doesn't matter what title it is. It can impact all of us. So with that being said, like if somebody comes in and you share that formula with them, is it going to be would you say that we have to meet people where they're at, or is there something they should be doing to start this process? So
the first thing that I would talk to them about is what I call my all-in checklist. And what that is not a to-do list, because when you're burning out and you're leading,
I want more to do.
So this is not about it. So I kind of modeled it after a checklist just for the fun of it, in terms of the look, which is kind of how it looks, but it really isn't a to-do list. It's asking yourself, and this goes to that first part of the equation about self-awareness, which is, I asked the questions, and this is what I asked of myself. So you said, this evolved because this is how I chose to live my life. And then I just kind of put it into a framework to share with people. But what I would say to myself and what I would say to leaders I'm working with is, what do you need to feel at your best? Don't worry about all the stuff that's on your plate or in your inbox. Let's talk about, what do you need each day or throughout either a 24-hour period or a 7-day period? What do you need? Is it, and I mentioned a few things before, but I don't know, maybe it's in the summertime, maybe it's playing golf. Maybe that refuels your spirit and it gets you away from, for me, it's the beach. I don't really like golf, but for me, if I could just sit on a beach for 4 hours in the summer, that's my creative energy is going to be fueled. My relaxation is going to be, I'll be completely relaxed. All of the cylinders, like I like to say, are going to be going well, working for me in the ways that I want them to. So the first thing that I would say is, let's look at 3 to 5. And you know what? To your point, Chris, about meeting them where they're at, could be 1. Maybe 3 is too many for someone at one, at the beginning. But what are a few things, or even just 1, that when you can either start your day this way, or do this at, get a work. So for somebody, it might be, I just need to get a workout at lunch. I need to take a 2-hour lunch and come back and I can just kill it the rest of the afternoon. They have that self-awareness. They have that, ability to be intentional about making sure that they block that time for themselves. This is about prioritizing ourselves with what we need most.
I love that. It's kind of like when you said that, it reminded me of the oxygen mask thing when
Yes.
when a flight attendant says, "Oh, okay, the oxygen mask, what do? You put it on yourself before you put it on the child, because you
Right.
can't give what you don't have. And if you don't take care of yourself, you're not really giving value to anyone anyway. So you might as well fill your cup, whatever that is. For you, it's the beach, and somebody else, it could be a walk in the morning or
Yep.
whatever that may be.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've used the analogy of the oxygen mask dozens of times, and I can't even tell you how many people have trouble with that analogy. Not that they don't get it, but they defy it. No, 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 no.
Right.
I have
They'll
to
say,
help my
well,
kid
I
first.
would put it on my child. That's the natural instinct to do.
Yes,
But how can you serve somebody if you're not even taking care of yourself?
that's
It's
right.
like saying, hey, you want to get into good health? Well, follow my advice, but yet you don't look the part. You're not being the part. So what's
Right. And I want to be clear that this isn't a diet exercise program.
Yes.
This is holistic health. This is, yes, our physical health is rooted in that. So are we fueling our body with nutrients, with water, with movement? But that's one of the four. So the work, and I should
Absolutely.
just give credit. I based this energy management piece off of the work of Tony Schwartz, and the Energy Project. And I've read his work many, many years ago, and it sort of became foundational to me in my leadership and self-care practices. And so that's what we talk about, these four energy domains, that we all have: our physical health needs, which are at the foundation. We have our mental, which is really about our focus and our ability to be clear in our thinking so that we can be at our best, especially at work. We have our spiritual energy, which is our sense of purpose, for folks who are thinking like, God, like I'm crunching numbers all day. Like what? So having some connection to something could be in your work, but it could also be, and if it's not found there, then you want to tap into, and again, spiritual and religious are not the same. So it could just be something that brings you joy and makes you feel like you're connected to something beyond, the grind, basically.
Powerful stuff, right? Again, listeners, this is so important more than ever. The concept of burnout. Burnout can be very subtle. Sometimes you may not even recognize the symptoms of what's happening. And what Ali's sharing is that this is a proactive approach. She shares with leaders that she works with. This isn't always a reactive type of formula. This is also a proactive. So it doesn't matter where you are. So I'm glad that you shared that, Ali. What are some other things that you feel could add value as part of the all-in process here in establishing better ways to offset burnout?
Well, it starts with the individual, and that's what we've been focused on. So leaders out there who are listening, and really it's leaders because I happen to love working with leaders, but supporting individuals. This is for, I shared this with my teenage son, like, here, do this, like, come up with because it's aligned to your values. It's
Oh yeah,
aligned to,
the younger you could start off, the better.
yes, yes, for absolutely. And so this is not just for leaders, but the idea of sharing it with leaders is that we all know leaders set the tone in the organization. And so if you're a leader who believes in wanting a healthy workforce, we know that that's from just a business standpoint is better for business when our workforce is healthy, when they're engaged, when they're energized in their work. And part of how we do that is to, in the workplace, name it and say, work is hard. Work can burn us out. We don't want you to be burnt out. So how do we get the work done, perform at our best, but still have this culture of self-care, is what I like to call it. So,
And like you said, it's an individual thing, and I guess in the workplace, in an organization, it's got to start with again, that someone that's going to take that initiative and be the example of that, and then hopefully it rubs off on other people that they adopt. They want to do the same for themselves. And
I feel like I worked in an organization for a long time as I was developing along my leadership journey, a very formative part of my journey. And I was in that culture of self-care where we would say, like, we're going to work super hard, but we're not going to call each other all weekend with work, and if you have stuff going on after work, like, yeah, if you're needed for an emergency, you pick up. But otherwise, the culture was respectful of people's personal time, because that's good for business too. Because when you come in the morning, having been fully rejuvenated or fully rested, or be able to spend time with people and things that you care about outside of work, you come into work that much more engaged, energized, and confident, and ready to perform at your best. So it's really all connected to the bottom line.
Absolutely. And I guess the results could be profound, right? On an individual, team, even organizational level. What could be some of the results that oftentimes, I guess, some organizations, or at the, starting with the leader or anybody, they just oftentimes don't put two and two together again. They're not like connecting, oh, could my productivity be better because of this? Could my whatever those performance metrics that are most important to the individual, the team, and the organization.
Yeah, and in addition to what you just shared about productivity, this is about high performance. Yeah. So this is about sustaining high. Anyone can perform at a high level for a period of time. The question is, are you going to be able to sustain that? And what burnout is the symptom that no, you're not able to sustain it. So, and part of the science behind this, as I spoke about the Energy Project, they actually studied high performers. They studied elite athletes, elite musicians. And one of the things that they found in this is that, people talk about the marathon, not the sprint. That analogy that, this is a long game. We're in it for the 26.2, right? What I actually derived from the research was, this is about the sprint being more important, not the marathon. Insofar as the sprinters, if you think about sprinters, they are high performing. They are running as fast as they can for a short period of time. And then what do? They come off the track, they have a drink of water, they fuel up, they take a breather, and then they're right on to the next run. And that's the mentality, that's the research that fuels our energy management, is that we can't go 6 straight hours without looking up from our computer, or standing up and stretching, or getting ready for the next meeting, or taking a bio break between Teams and Zoom calls, right? Like, we need to be able to do that just on a day-to-day, with the mentality of, after about 90 minutes, the science says we're not at our best anymore. Take 15 minutes, take 10 minutes, do something to fuel your body, or remember those 4 energy domains, or just go on your phone and send someone a text that's going to send you something that's going to, get your endorphins going again, or anything that's the focus piece. Like, how do we get back to performing in the long game is really acting like a sprinter. So I love how that it's kind of the reverse psychology of what we're all used to hearing about. But when you talk about organizational performance, and why especially leaders of teams and organizations should care about this, is because in addition to high performance being able to be maintained and sustained, it's also about loyalty and engagement with the company. Most people say they are burnt out or they are disengaged. And as leaders of organizations and teams, that's not what we want to hear. So how do we show people, and what is it that they're disengaged from? Maybe the work itself they enjoy, but if they don't feel valued, they don't feel like their personal time is respected, all of those things contribute to employees feeling good about the organization that they're working with and the work that they're producing.
No, great insights over here. I love what you're sharing here. As we get near the end of the show, is there any final thoughts that you have not shared so far that you would like to add to this topic about all in, to connect the dots, and how leaders or any individuals that desire high performance in their personal lives, in their business, or a combination thereof, to help offset burnout?
Well, I think that like I said at the beginning, Math is not my strong suit, but I came up with a formula, and the formula works. If you infuse intentionality, self-care, and self-awareness, you are going to show up at your best if you follow it, right? And you get to choose what those elements of that formula are. For one person are different from someone else. They could be the total opposite, but if it makes you feel like it's going to help you have the best day to be able to sustain your high performance, it's going to work for you. And then the last thing I would say, Chris, is we're talking at the beginning about KPIs and, this being about it's good for business. I would actually call self-care a strategic imperative.
Oh, yeah.
Some people think that it's just, like I said earlier, it's not about bubble baths. That's not what we're talking about.
Wow.
We're talking about how do we maintain for ourselves in our person, and this is as much for our personal lives. Don't we want to be the best for our children, for our
quality of life? I want to be an example for my kids. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we can do it.
Spouse or anybody.
Exactly. And this is not about, oh, I don't want to work so hard. I don't want to take on more. No, it's about I can take on more and I can work really hard because I've infused this philosophy and the formula to get there into my life so that I can constantly restore and renew and recharge.
Powerful stuff. Thank you, Ellie. I want to thank you personally for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today on Business Influencers, and not only for myself, but the rest of the team here at TALRadio and the Touch of Life Foundation.
Thank you, Chris. This was awesome. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, please. Thank you. And we want to make sure that the listeners get to connect with you, get to know you. So share with us, how can they get in contact with you? Anything that you're up to that you feel like that could, benefit and maybe engage you more, and anything that you'd like to share or provide the audience.
Sure. Thank you for that opportunity. So first of all, always great to connect with folks on LinkedIn. Ali Glaser, I guess it's written on the screen somewhere.
It'll be in the show notes.
All right. And I got a little purple backdrop to my profile, so you'll know it's me. I have a website that's aliglaser.com, and that's where you could find everything. I'm also on Instagram at Ali Glaser Coaching and Facebook at Ali Glaser Executive Performance. So easy to find me in any of those places. I'd like to share also that I have a masterclass called the All-In Masterclass, and this can be sponsored by organizations. So organizational leaders who might be listening can bring this to their team. We go through the all-in, basically you leave with an all-in checklist. You learn the philosophy that we just talked about. You develop your own personal all-in checklist, and we take you through the process so that you can, infuse this philosophy and show up at your best. And then lastly, I just published a book called All In, the 28-day reset, a daily commitment to being at your best. And this is essentially for folks who are either at the very beginning of this process and have never heard any of this until now, or for folks like me, because I basically wrote it for myself because I was feeling burnt out. And even after infusing all of this into my life, I went through a few months where I was just like, man, I need something. So I gave myself a reset, and I essentially recommitted to the daily checklist that I had been using. And I wrote a book about it to share with folks so that no matter where you are, if this is something that sounds very familiar to how you live your life, or it's something that you've never thought about before, the book walks you through it and meets you where you're at. So happy, and folks can find that at Amazon and on my website as well.
Excellent. And we'll make sure to have that also included in the show notes as well. Well, Ali, thank you so much again, and we appreciate you. And again, we encourage you listeners to reach out to Ali on LinkedIn, as well as her website, aliglaser.com. And again, all that information will be here in the show notes. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ali.
Chris.
And thank you, listeners, joining us each and every week. Again, we are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Ali in to help move you and your business to the next level. It's always about influence, because without influence, we can't get buy-in. And if we don't have buy-in, we can't convert and close new ideas, new innovations, and any products or services that we can do to help the people we choose to help. And that could be personally and professionally. So we hope, again, We encourage you to make sure you have business influencers on your list. Again, you can listen to this show at the TALRadio platform, talradio.org, or Spotify, Apple, and then also our video portion of the show on YouTube. Just to put in business influencers and you'll find us. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week at the same time. Take care.